Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, is Mat Ishbia finally learning from his past? And a little he said, she said with Bradley Beal, Mark Bartelstein, as well as Mat Ishbia. And finally, the Suns miss out on Marcus Smart. What does it mean? Let's talk about it all next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. My name is Benjamin Garcia, not a staff writer at Awful Announcing. That's not true. I am a credentialed Suns media member covering the Phoenix Suns over the past couple of seasons. Thanks for making Locked On Phoenix Suns your first listen today on this beautiful Monday. Don't forget, Locked On Phoenix Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button to do what thousands of other Suns fans have done every single day. Become an everydayer. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Joining me, as always, from the, east side. Normally it's wonderful West Valley. Today it's the east side. My guy, Brendan Kleen, a staff writer over at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. What's up, man? How you doing? A little different today. How'd things go?
Mixing things up, although, yeah, these folks in the Suns organization keep talking. I don't know why. So we're going to dig into that today and try to make sense of the spin, I think, a little bit here.
Yeah, there's definitely been some spinning going on with the Phoenix Suns. Bartelstein, Mat Ishbia, Bradley Beal. We'll talk about that all in just a second. However, Mat Ishbia seems to be potentially learning from his past. You can kind of take it for what it's worth, but Ishbia went on SiriusXM and basically talked about some of the things that has happened, the mistakes that have transpired in the Phoenix Suns organization. Ishbia is now speaking out on that through SiriusXM. Let's hear what he said yesterday about the Suns' mistakes and what they're going to do to correct those.
Vision and identity day one. And I did not do that with the Phoenix Suns. I thought, hey, let's add some money. Let's give them, they already had a good thing going. Let's untap some resources and it will only get better. And that's not how it works. We have to set an identity. We have to define what we're about here in Phoenix. We have to get those type of players. And I have to be intimately involved with those type of people in our organization, from the front office to the medical staff, to the dietitians. Everybody's got to have an alignment of what we're about here in Phoenix. And we didn't do a good enough job. That's on me. I'll take the blame. We are going to do it the right way here in Phoenix for the long term. And the long term could be a year or 2 or 3, or it could be 10. But we are going to build it the right way. We got to make our fans proud. No one's going to question whether I care. I promise you that. And no one's going to question whether I spend. I promise you that. So I'll check those 2 boxes. But it takes more than that to win. And I'm going to try to learn all those things and help lead this organization in the best way possible. The big thing I learned is that, listen, you got to start and have the...
That's enough from you, Matt. So I think we've heard that multiple times. He's willing to spend, he's willing to take big risks. But I think what was more important there is him basically talking about, we made some mistakes in the past, and I want to correct those, have an alignment, have a different way of doing things. Brendon, are you buying that, or is it just same old Mat Ishbia, but this time he's going to make it very clear that his thumbprint and everything is all over the Suns team?
I think Mat Ishbia sounds like somebody who clearly learned a lesson, but I'm not sure if it's the right lesson. I think it's funny listening to him talk there. Like, I don't doubt that Ishbia, how could you doubt that Ishbia is going to spend money and be aggressive and all those sorts of things? Like, he's proven that. That's not a question, whether you're talking about his company or the Phoenix Suns or the Phoenix Mercury. But it honestly sounds a lot like how James Jones used to speak. And the criticism I would have of James Jones, which was lacking the overarching goal, right? Like, okay, we were building around a big 3, all in, vets, win a championship. Okay, that didn't work. Pivot. Now we're young, 10 years to build, this, that, and the other. We're for the long haul. That is all we're doing. And it's like, you look at the Miami Heat or the Boston Celtics or whoever, there's like a big picture lesson and a big picture identity that's being built toward. And so that's the part where I'm not hearing that. And maybe it just comes with time and everything else, but it sounds like part of the problem and part of why that's not there is he has a really hard time trusting other minds, is what it sounds like. Because why couldn't that have happened with James Jones or Bob Myers or anybody else that you could throw in there that's more of a NBA lifer, experienced decision maker that he could have plugged in to work alongside him? Why did it have to be that in order for him to feel good and even start to get close to that bigger picture and a little bit of a pivot from his way or the highway, why did it have to only be people he happened to have met before? That's the part that I think is not quite clicking and that I think is still bothering me hearing him talk about it.
Yeah, the thing I think bothers me the most is the lack of vulnerability in it. It feels like when you say sorry in an argument that you're not actually sorry for, you just want to move on. And then he goes back to saying, but I did this, and this. It feels like he thinks that this is going to be a lot easier of a turnaround than it actually is. Just saying the buzzwords of alignment and looking like you're doing things correctly, I don't think goes far enough for me to be able to just be like, oh, you've got it totally fixed. Because if you're Ishbia, you have to understand that you have failed like ginormously over the last couple of seasons. But it's the lack of accountability, I think, on himself and the vulnerability of basically saying it was really hard. We screwed this up. The situation we're in is not great right now. We're picking up the pieces to try to make it look better. And unfortunately, it's a harsh lesson in reality that I don't think he has been able to say, yep, this is what happened. It just feels like a half-assed apology sometimes when you say these kind of things. But it's not only just that as well, right? Ishbia potentially learning from some of his mistakes, but it's also, we've kind of seen this as a year where you have to win over Devin Booker at least a little bit. Make him seem like that this is a competent organization that's going to want to stay with. Well, Mat Ishbia also came out on SiriusXM and said the following: I don't feel any pressure to win to keep Devin happy. Devin's going to be happy because we're going to try to win. We're going to do things to be aligned with the vision and identity that he agrees with 1,000%. And I agree with 1,000%. I don't need any external pressure to try to win. We want to win every single day. We want to get better every single day, but the expectation has changed. When you have Kevin, Devin, and Brad, people think it's championship or bust. And unfortunately, we busted 2 years in a row. He mentioned a couple of other things, but that's the gist of what he's saying. Are you buying that you don't necessarily have to convince Devin Booker that you're trying to win? Or is this all just kind of, again, he said, she said?
Well, let's clarify. He didn't say try to win. He said actually win. I think that's the distinction he's making. Like, do they have to win 50 games right away in order for Devin Booker to want to be part of this build? And I actually do buy that that's true. I don't think that they need to be excellent immediately and go back to contender status in the next little while in order for Book to buy in. I think it's not even just Book. I think all any superstar truly wants is an ownership and front office that is all in, and obviously the tools to continue to be all in. Now, that second part is where the Suns, and like you see with Milwaukee, for instance, that starts to get dicey. Do you actually have the ability to do that, even if you say all the right things, is sort of a different question. But I do think it's true because, like Lillard in Portland, we're all celebrating his return because I think all he ever really wanted was to have the support of that fan base and be in a competitive environment. And once you stray from that, and the team and him both kind of strayed from that a few years ago, I think a lot of the time you end up regretting it. And so I think that that's true when it comes to Book. But obviously, if it's 4 or even 2 years from now, and we're still feeling like it's not close, well, then it might not actually feel like they're building aggressively anymore if it keeps failing. So in the short term, I actually do buy that there's not a ton of pressure to win in order to make Booker happy.
Well, I also take it from a different perspective too, man, where if Devin Booker doesn't think you have to win for him to want to stay there, to me, it's like, how much does Devin Booker actually care about winning? That's where it comes to me, where it's like, oh, you don't have to actually have to win. You just have to make it at least look like it, or You don't actually have to win games. Devin Booker's just okay taking a paycheck. When I
Book
see
didn't
that,
say it.
no, I'm not saying Book said it, but it's telling me, oh, you have a player on your team that is okay with just collecting a paycheck if the team isn't good enough. I know that's not on Devin Booker, but I do kind of want to hear a little bit of a kick in the ass from Devin Booker to Mat Ishbia being like, we got to win games this year. I'm not talking about winning 55 games, 50 games, 45 games, but we have to take a fairly drastic step up from where we were last year. Remember, there were 10 games under 500 last year, and be a competitive team, because if you're not that, you could lose Devin Booker. I do think pressure is a good thing for this team to have. Do you see what I'm saying
but Book's
there?
not dumb. What good would it be for him to say win 50 games? It's just not going to happen. And frankly, a lot of the difference of how it, even if you dreamt up a situation where it could happen, it would be him being out of this world amazing. So what good does it do for him to create fairly unrealistic expectations in terms of the standings, the win-loss, when it doesn't change the reality of the situation, which is that this is a reset that he just recommitted to with that extension? What would be helpful about him publicly or even privately being so like obtuse about it and being like, we gotta win? Well, good. I mean, I gotta have a sports car. I don't have one.
Well, I think
that.
Well, for me, man, when you're 36 and 46 last year and you don't even make the play-in, I do think it's realistic expectations for Devin Booker to say, hey, listen, we got to be a playoff team or a play-in team this year, because I know how good I am in a one-game setting. I can help lift us to the playoffs. That part's on me. But what we can't be this year is a team that is 15 games under 500. It doesn't work out. And then you're talking about issues for the Suns down the line where you don't even feel like you can compete with the players that you have. That's what I just need there to be a little bit more pressure from Ishbia feeling that from Devin Booker.
I think there's plenty. I think when people say win, when the interviewer says win to Ishbia, win means playoff wins. Win means be really good. Obviously, if they win 22 games, we're having a very different conversation. So there's a sweet spot in there where Booker is still going to feel like this thing is headed in the right direction because they're competitive and the moves that they did make this summer do work out, but also being realistic and not trying to say we're about to make the conference finals and then just sounding like an idiot in the public.
All I'm saying is, okay, so let me you just said, yes, you feel like there is pressure. I just wish that was pointed out more towards the public of like, we know how important this season is. We've talked about over the last couple of years, it's championship or bust for us. I just want to bring back a little bit of that pressure that Ishbia feels like it. Not necessarily that Devin Booker is even putting it on him. Just me as a fan is like, wait a second. We could lose Devin Booker next year because we're not trying to win.
I think that goes back to my answer from the clip you played, where it's like, when it's so whack-a-mole season to season, then that is when it starts to feel like, what is the big picture? And Ishbia's comments are very often, in my opinion, based on what just happened. And unfortunately for, I think, his decision-making, what is everybody saying about it? He listens to the noise, and I don't think either of those two things are healthy. So I think that he's just trying to say that there's not a lot of pressure because that's just the opposite of what he's been saying for 2 years, and he knows he needs to change. Okay, so I'm changing. Do you hear me? I'm changing. That's like what I'm hearing when he says this stuff. But obviously, I think that he feels like his actions speak for themselves in order to actually do what he knows needs to be done to keep Devin Booker. So maybe that's also why he doesn't feel the need to go talk about it, is because in his head, he's like, yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes, and Book knows that, and I don't need to go tell, Burns and Gambo or Eddie Johnson and Justin Termini about it.
Well, it's just so funny, man, because it's like we've heard Ishbia speak about it. It'd be nice to get a quote from Devin Booker saying, yes, we need to be better next year, but also we understand that the expectations are different than they were from year after year. It'd just be nice to hear from your star player. However, a former star player for the Phoenix Suns, the stories just keep on coming. Bradley Beal, Mark Bartelstein, a little he said, she said. Who do we believe in the story of Bradley Beal's exit? Let's talk about it next. First, today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can, whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase. Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budget is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. You know, it's kind of funny when it comes to tracking your spending. About 4 or 5 months ago, I got laid off from my job. It happens to the best of us. Life gets in the way. So me and my wife, we noticed some of the things that are going on in our finances. We cut some of the fat out just to make things a little bit easier. And then it comes to realize if we would have been tracking our money a little bit smarter with Monarch Money, we would have noticed that we had memberships for things that I hadn't used in years. Had I been using Monarch Money, had I been using the tools in my grasp, I wouldn't have had that issue. We would have been saving money even before I got laid off. But that's what Monarch Money does for you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Keeping the show rolling, I would read both of the articles the first article that came out with Mark Bartelstein on Bradley Beal's exit, basically saying there were some heated words exchanged between what was going to happen to the buyout. Suns didn't want him there. Instead, we'll send it over to the Burns and Gambo show, Brendon, who had Mat Ishbia on, talking about the remarks of Mark Bartelstein on Bradley Beal's exit, that it seemed a little bit more heated than it wasn't. But Ishbia's got a different take on the matter.
The conversations with Brad in moving on, the word intense was used, the word, I believe by his agent, the word heated was used. What was the nature and the tone of those conversations when you were going through this with him?
You know, I'm not going to speak to stuff about the agent. I don't know what they did and how they discussed it. But I'll tell you, I spoke with Brad Beal himself, me personally, and he's nothing but a professional. Nothing but appreciative of his time here. Disappointed that it didn't work. Disappointed that he can't stay with the Phoenix Suns. And he handled it like a gentleman and a professional that he is. And we're moving forward. So I look at that as a past now. We're going to move forward. It's no longer part of our organization. It was a decision we made when we traded for Kevin Durant and Brad Beal. Those decisions and putting that team together, it did not work. Yeah. Now, I promise you we're going to take other swings in the future. And if you want a team that doesn't try to win and doesn't take swings and doesn't get aggressive, don't cheer for the Phoenix Suns because we are always going to try to win.
The conversations with Brad in moving on.
Thank you, Dave Burns. It's funny, Brendon. When we saw this story come out, I saw it initially. Mark Bartelstein basically saying it was a little heated. Maybe words were exchanged. Not thrilled with the situation that had transpired in Phoenix. A buyout situation was in the works. Maybe Beal took literally the most minimum amount as possible to make the buyout happen. Relationships weren't great. Ishbia comes out and says, I don't really remember that being the case. Who do you believe, and what do you think actually happened?
So let me give the version of the story where everybody's kind of right. Okay? So Beal last year was benched, shown to his face by way of the Jimmy Butler trade talks and his role on the team that they didn't value him. Even after Budenholzer gets fired, he has every reason to believe that that's still going to be true. That gets even more true. So in this article, he apparently, before they ever got Jalen Green and traded Kevin Durant, as far back as when Jordan Knott took the job, Beal didn't feel like he wanted to be around, right? So that would go back to last year, which they kind of showed him that they didn't want him around. And Mat Ishbia said a very similar version of this right after the season in terms of the identity, the competitiveness. If you're not going to be like that, you're not going to have a place on the team. Very thinly veiled jab at Beal there. Then I think if you read this article, maybe Bartelstein is just talking about the money side. He's just saying the intense conversations were just about the amount that Beal was going to give back via buyout, which, as far as right now, is more than he theoretically is going to make on this Clippers contract, and that's not always common, so that is something to be, strongly negotiated over. And Ishbia probably does respect Brad to a degree, right? Like he does, I think, all things considered, nothing terrible happened. He didn't, punch him in the face at a meeting. He didn't, anything like that. But man, doesn't it feel like these two sides just want to say the most awful stuff about each other? Like it feels like they are chomping at the bit to tell us how much they do not like each other, because they are going so close to the line without crossing it that whether it's leaking, whether it's these carefully worded statements, whether it's Ishbia saying one thing and then quickly saying something that kind of feels very different, like I think it ended really, really badly. I think that, the organization was probably just as frustrated by the end of Beal's time here as a lot of fans were, and it's showing.
I saw Mark Barlstein's quotes, like exactly kind of framing the situation of like, obviously it got heated, the same stuff Dave Burns said. I'm not going to change it up into any different of words. However, I saw that and I was like, dude, why would you leak that? Who cares? I mean, doesn't your son work for the organization? Are you really trying to make it harder on him to be able to get guys here later? And so I kind of expect that from the party away from the team. Those guys are crazy, whatever, like fine. I thought Mat Ishbia's quote was perfect up until that last part where they were talking about you as well. How you were saying, we have a vision, we have a game plan, we have an alignment, and Bradley Beal didn't fit that. Right there, it's like, why did you have to add that? Just let it die.
Because
whatever
I think he's super mad at Brad. Like, I
know.
Think that it's just he's human,
I get that, and I get the human side of it. But you are the CEO, or you're the owner of the team. Like I'm sure you've had this before in the past too. I've had this happen to me 2 or 3 times, not in the sports world, maybe once in the sports world, where I got laid off from a job, or I lost a job, or when I was younger, I got lost a job. Where it's like you're angry at that party, or same with a sports team. You don't make a sports team. That happened to me when I was younger. You think one thing in your head, and you say, "Oh, thank you for the opportunity." You don't get a job that you went through 3 rounds of interviews for. Oh, thanks for letting me be here. Let me know later on in the past. You don't twist the knife and of like, hey, if that guy that you hired above me eventually isn't as good as me, let me know. Like, you don't do that. And so when you're the parent in this situation, that's where I kind of go after Mat Ishbia, where it's like, you kind of have to be the adult here. Bradley Beal got kicked off the team. He got waxed from the team. He's not going to be thrilled. You were the one that helped make this decision. You got to be the one that takes the high road. That's where I see it from my side. What about you?
I don't disagree that that's how it should have been handled. I think, human, and Ishbia is a very emotional, intense guy. That always shows. It's probably not easy for him to hold back on certain things, and that's just getting the best of him here. At the same time, I feel like this is a little bit of what we were talking about in that last segment when it comes to trying to express that vision and adhere to it. And I think that there is an element of him that is probably trying to communicate. I mean, he said it, right? In April, right after the season, when he did the press conference that you and I were both at, he said, there are going to be players that we do not keep around because they don't fit. And I think that there's an element of him that wants to make that clear to the league and say, see, we just did it. We were not effing around. Brad's gone because Brad did not fit. 5 years, our cap sheet 5 years from now, be damned. The optics of it, be damned. No, we didn't even do this for Miles Turner like Milwaukee did. We did this because we just really were that sick and tired of this guy, and we want to turn the page. So I kind of can respect that too, even though I've given my opinions personally about the Beal move. I think that that's part of what he's trying to do here too, and it's probably coming across that way for different players and agents and teams around the league.
So in that same ESPN article, Mark Bartlestein mentioned that about 20 teams were interested in Bradley Beal. Mm-hmm. Do you buy that? For 2 years, $11 million. Do you buy that?
Oh, well, no, because I don't think he's saying it that it was that contract. Because there was also reporting out there that Brad was offered a lot of minimum offers and things like that. So if you could get Bradley Beal at the minimum, every team should at least be inquiring about that, right? So I buy that. I don't mean 20, I don't know, but I think there was probably a lot of interest, same way that there seemingly was with Dame. So I think so. I kind of do believe it.
Well, I didn't think of it in that nature, and I probably should have before I asked the question of, did Bradley Beal have multiple 2-year, $11 million offers on the table? I just don't buy that, especially when in a NBA league where there's aprons obviously to it, where not everyone has cap space. Only few teams actually have the ability to go give a 2-year, $11 million contract out that are actually competing. Not the Wizards of the world, not the not the whatever, those teams, right?
Exactly. It's kind of irrelevant because we know what Beal wanted. So it's like,
exactly.
Well, great. Maybe the Grizzlies would have offered him that, but we just went through it last summer or last season where the Butler stuff goes on, and it's like, it doesn't really matter if Detroit would like Beal because he's not going there. So it's kind of the same thing here.
Moving on, let's get to the final segment of the show, Brendon, where I just mentioned the Wizards a second ago. They bought out a guy in Marcus Smart. The Phoenix Suns were in on that sweepstakes, ended up losing that sweepstakes. Let's talk about that next. Finishing the show yesterday, Marcus Smart was bought out by the Washington Wizards. And according to Mark Stein, who I think had this story first, league sources tell the Stein line that Phoenix also has interest in Smart once he becomes an unrestricted free agent. But the expectation is that Smart will choose to join the Lakers as LA's third marquee, which is a interesting way to put that, offseason acquisition, along with DeAndre Ayton and Jake LaRavia. I know who that is. Obviously played for the Kings last year. However, name didn't hit that on the mark. Marcus Smart is was obviously on the Suns' radar. The Suns missed out on him. What's your initial reaction? Are you upset that didn't work out? Were you think that would have been a nice missing piece for the Suns, or where do you land on that?
Not really that disappointed. Otherwise, I would have brought him up as we've been talking about what the Suns could do at the guard spot with one of these roster spots, right? Like I think me never mentioning him as somebody I wanted probably answers that for our everydayers here. I just think Marcus Smart, anybody, there's a lot of Boston media, and so it's easy to get a read on Celtics players. And toward the end of that, really the last couple seasons, even though he won Defensive Player of the Year his second to last season with the Celtics, they were telling us, physically he's not the same guy, and he's headed toward a different type of version of what he's going to be as a player. And, you can look at it and say this past season he was with a Grizzlies team. The past couple seasons he was with a Grizzlies team and a Wizards team that were not exactly in prime contention or position to win much of anything, although Memphis a little more this year. But he played 54 games the past 2 seasons and 61 the year before that. He's a theoretical fit for what the Suns need, but I actually think this guy, whoever it ends up being that the Suns are going to bring in, part of why I get why they're being a little deliberate about it here is I think this person is going to actually potentially play some minutes for this team. And so I don't know if you could afford to have it be somebody with injury questions. It's frankly part of why I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody even like a Malcolm Brogdon is a home run because of the same concerns that I would have about him. So, if they had signed Marcus Smart on a minimum deal, would I have sit here and ripped it? No, because it's a minimum contract with one of your last roster spots. But I think it actually would have been kind of a risk because they need a dude who can actually slide in here and be capable for a large role throughout the whole year.
I don't think it was just the fact that the Boston Celtics fans and media had also kind of seen that Marcus Smart was starting to break down all that stuff, right? When people talk about the defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart, yes, he was a really good defensive player. However, that whole Boston Celtics team was riddled with elite level defensive players. So yes, maybe he was the marquee player there. They shipped him out of town for, granted, I think it was Drew Holiday at the end of the day. However, all that worked out. But Marcus Smart, you had mentioned it too, man. 20 games, 19 games, 15 games, a total of 34 games played over the last 2 seasons. When you combine those games between the Grizzlies and the Wizards, he played about 54 games over the last 2 years. He's breaking down. He's someone that the Suns, yes, maybe could have used as a bulldog defensively. he is a smaller guy. He's only 6'3". He's not like he's going to come in here and intimidate other people. I just don't know if that would have been the right spot for someone who I assume would want playing time, when I feel like, I mean, tell me if you've heard this before, man. I feel like they have the pesky defensive guy on the bench in Colin Gillespie. I don't think he's going to be awesome, but I don't think he's a minus defensively to be able to give the Suns exactly what they need.
I don't think he's exactly like that's why I said
Smart
theoretically,
is like Smart's a better defensive player. I don't want to make it seem like that either. I'm just saying
they're different. I think
pays that role.
Smart can switch. Like he's 6'3". He can guard 1 through 3, 1 through 4, or at least he could in his prime. And so if you got that player, I think there's absolutely a role for that guy. We know that Jordan Ott wants to pressure the ball and be a stifling point of attack team defensively and prevent that penetration and everything else, that the defense is going to really start up there like it did with Frank Vogel. And that would be great to have Marcus Smart for. But, I don't think he's that anymore. And, yeah, I mean, his shooting has fallen off of a cliff. And, he was never great. And so it probably wasn't going to make sense to have a lesser version of that guy. At the same time, I could just keep sitting here and saying Malcolm Brogdon every episode so people can put their bingo chips down or take a shot or whatever. But I really don't know who else it's going to be. Like, even now, trying to expand my imagination to, are there buyout candidates on some of these teams now that the Smart thing has kind of got some of us thinking in that direction? But Jordan Clarkson already got bought out, and some of these other guys have been traded or different things. I don't really see exactly who that's going to be either. So I hate to be a broken record, but it may just be, unless they can pull one of these trade rabbits out of their hat, Ben, it might just have to be Brogdon at this point. That might be where they're stuck. And then if he doesn't want to come here, I actually don't know what they do.
It does kind of feel like either the Suns aren't, it doesn't seem like it is Brogdon at this point. I feel like if it was Brogdon, they would have just signed him already. They've got the cap space to do so. They got the taxpayer they're not even in the tax at this point, if I'm not mistaken, but they have the mid-level exception. They've got all sorts of things to bring him in. They can overpay for him if they need to. However, it just feels like we're going down the trade route right now. That might not pan out, but it feels like that's where they're going to at this point. And it feels like maybe they could bring someone in terms of a trade, or just knowing those guys aren't going anywhere. That's kind of where I would go with it.
One other candidate on a different team, I don't think he'll necessarily be bought out because there's not really a huge reason to do it, but Javon Carter doesn't really seem like he has a role in Chicago. And, he's not switchable. He's really like, he can defend guards, and that's it because he's so small. But he's become a more stable shooter, and he's on an expiring contract. Again, if you're just talking about somebody to play 10 to 15 minutes here and there throughout the season and be capable and not cause problems, obviously fan favorite, I think Javon Carter could be great. I'm not saying that just because he played here. I'm actually saying that based on looking around the league, and they have Kobe White and Josh Giddey and Ayo Dosunmu and Trey Jones, who they just re-signed. There's not a role for a 30-year-old Javon Carter, so that could be one.
No, dude. It's because you're in love with the 2021 team. You want to bring Carter back. Yeah. And the twins and everything in particular.
Jalen Smith, while we're at it. Yeah.
Abdul Nader, why not? Let's see what he's doing. He's got to be kicking around there somewhere. Let's kind of switch the conversation over to this, man. People are probably confused why it is that I'm driving the show today. It's not opposite day. There's not a reason why I'm on one side of the screen.
And Brendon, pink, though.
We decided to match.
That out. Yeah.
We decided to match. I'm just going to pass it over to you. I don't feel like there's stuff going on. I'm going to just pass it over to you. I don't think it's my announcement to make. It's a weird transition, but I'll let you take the floor, man.
Yeah, from Marcus Smart and Javon Carter over to an announcement is a little weird, but this week will be my last week on Locked On Suns. It has been almost 8 years, I want to say. November 2017 is when I officially started, so we're almost at 8 years. There was a little gap in 2020 during the bubble where I was not around, but we'll just call it 8. It's been crazy to watch the show grow. Shout out to Kellen Olson and Eddie House and another co-host who shall not be named for the help that got this thing to where it is. Shout out to Aaron Edwards and Brandon Duenas and Stephen Perjon Garner, who have been recurring co-hosts on a weekly basis with me here. Shout out to you, Ben, for the last year, which has been not fun from a basketball standpoint, but very cool to do a show with a different person and actually have a day-to-day voice and person to bounce things off of and actually make it a conversation rather than a rambling mess solo like it has been at various points. And yeah, shout out to the audience like I started with there. This show was not on YouTube. It was like as low tech and lo-fi as you can imagine. The network was nothing. I didn't even get paid because I don't think they realized I was co-hosting the show for like the first season I was doing it, because I don't think that co-host, who shall not be named, told them. And now, look, we're on TV doing stuff. We have real ads and real staff and social media and all of it. And then we have like 10,000 people who are like part of this audience, which is insane. So, salute to all of you. Salute to all the guests and everything that I mentioned. But yeah, this will be the last week.
Brendon told me a couple of weeks ago that he's going to be winding down his work here. Like from my side of it, I don't think you're this guy, man. I don't think we've ever gone this way, but like I owe you a lot. You took a shot on me about a year ago, and let's call it what it is. Like, it was bumpy at first. I'm a little bit of a loudmouth. And then we kind of found our stride. People at times like thought we hated each other because we're going after each other as well. Like, I just want people to know that like any of the success, a lot of the success that I've had, maybe 90% of it over the past year has been because of Brendon. He's given me this platform. I can't tell you how much it sucks that he's leaving. I tell my wife often, I'm like, listen, I don't know how close of friends Brendon and I would be because I'm a loudmouth and people actually like him, but he's a great person to host a show with. He's always on time. He's doing his work. I never have to feel like something isn't getting done. Sometimes I'm like, should I be doing more? Brendon has been seriously awesome. I am indebted to him. And if he will have it, obviously he's going to take some time to himself. Like, I want you as a reoccurring guest on the show as much as we can. We don't need to promise anything, but like, this is your baby. So, let me just make this clear too. Like, nothing I did, Brendon, unless you just really hate me behind scenes, but like, this is a you thing. You're doing a lot and just taking a step back, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll be around. I mean, I'm still going to live in the Valley. I still have some places I can cover the Suns sports here locally. Phoenix New Times, I've done some writing for over the past couple of years. That's going to continue. A lot of people in the Valley have my number and call me up for random things at this point. I'm hoping to do at least some writing with PHNX. Hopefully have a piece going up with them on the Mercury this week, so I'll get to do some of that, hopefully more. And, I mean, look, awful announcing has been a full-time job for 2 years, and before that, I worked at ASU full-time for 2 years. So I don't, sometimes people will be in the comments section like, this is whatever, must be so nice to get to do this, and you don't get what you don't know how what, and it's like, no, this is not my job. This never really was able to be my full-time job. So it's time to have one, instead of like 1.5 or 1.75 jobs, I'm gonna have really just one, maybe 1.25.
1.25. Let's call it 1.25.
Maybe that's more accurate. But yeah, that's all it is. It's been very cool, like I said at the beginning, but it's a lot. It's daily. It's 30 minutes of a show, but it's hours. It's 30.
It's also 30 minutes of screen time. Yeah, no, it's 30 minutes of screen time. But going to the games, watching the game for 3 hours, finding out what we want to talk about, doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah, man,
so
it's been.
I'll have more on Friday. As far as like a very actual final farewell. I'll be posting this news on Twitter on Monday and everything, but just wanted to give the heads up. That way it's not like all of a sudden I'm the last 5 minutes of my last show telling everybody. So yeah, that's the
to deal. Be fair, I wanted you to have the farewell tour. I wanted every show, you got a different gift. Someone we had on, like Udonis Haslem got a rocking chair. I was kind of hoping to get you one of those, although I think you're 6 months older than me. But yeah, man, you've been instrumental in not, I seriously, man, I mean this wholeheartedly. I don't think you're just instrumental to this. I remember one of the first people I had on like my own personal show that I do on my own YouTube channel. I reached out to you. You don't even know this, but like I was scared. I was like, hey man, do you mind coming on my podcast? Let's talk about these things. You were willing to do that. You were super gracious, kind with your time. Same with this here, man. Again, I hope to see you as a fairly recurring guest when that time comes, whenever you make a decision that like, all right, I'm willing to make public appearances again. But I personally wish you nothing but the best. I mean, it sucks, man. It really sucks to see you go. But I appreciate everything you've not only done for me, but like indirectly for my family and bringing me on, dude. So appreciate it, man. You will be missed. And we still got 5 more shows with you. So maybe we'll do a farewell tour then. But anything else, man?
No, people can drop anything that they. I'll be checking the comments section. So if there's any thoughts or messages or anything you want to share, we can definitely interact there. Obviously, you all know where to find me on social media and everything. But I'll just get it out of the way now. The best guest I ever had, clearly far and away, Cam Johnson. So no one is going.
You had
to,
Cam Johnson on
that.
the show.
Yeah, Cam.
Where do I come into play?
Right before the Lakers series. Well, you're not a guest.
Well, before I came on once. When mine the top
came
half?
On because Nick told me to bring you on because you were about to work here, so that doesn't count as a guest. I didn't just invite you on because you wrote a cool article or something.
Because I sure didn't write a cool article.
Yeah. So Cam, it's Cam. Sorry.
Cam
Sorry
Johnson.
to everybody else.
And
Sorry to Dan Bickley.
Cool, man.
Sorry to Landry Shamet, who is another
player.
You had
Landry Shamet on the podcast?
I did. So, but it's Cam.
Okay.
Put that all to bed now.
I mean, that's pretty great. Anyways, guys, thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen. Every day we'll be here tomorrow as well. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now go ahead, make your second listens, everything else in Locked On NBA world. But for now, thank you for continuously making Locked On Phoenix Suns your first listen every single day. For Brendon, for myself, it's been Locked On Phoenix Suns. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. I'll get this stuff up and post.